Hello, and welcome to another episode of Tuesdays with Tally. This is episode 65, and I'm your host, Brian Tally. The mission and the goal of this podcast is to bring an engaging conversation that will add value to the lives of everyday people. We will inspire, encourage, educate, and tell the stories of America's finest men and women in an effort to motivate you to live your life to its fullest potential. Be sure to follow us on social media and on Spotify. The online information and handles are all located on the scrolling ticker at the bottom portion of your screen. Be sure to like and share the program as well. You can also support the program by going to Anchor FM or Spotify and clicking the support button. Do you own a business? Do you want exposure? Do you want to be heard? Let me help you advertise your business right here on this podcast. Program sponsorships include a custom written script to advertise your business to its fullest potential. Email me directly at thetallybill@gmail.com and let's set up an impactful advertising plan to help you and your business get the results you're looking for. Again, email me directly at thetallybill@gmail.com. That's thetallybill@gmail.com. And let's get started today. Folks, we have a very special guest joining us on today's program. Mike Ryan is the president of Semper Brands, LLC, and is a BSEE graduate of General Motors Institute and has attended the University of Notre Dame, Mendoza School of Business. He has over 30 years of experience in project and executive management in energy and information technology with global expertise and strategy creation, developing executive relationships, complex project management, and applying technology to business opportunities through a solid understanding of financial analysis, capital budgeting, and technology applications. Mike also has extensive experience in the business deployment of global IT projects and has served in several VP and CIO roles. Various members of his family have served in the U.S. Army, the U.S. Navy, the U.S. Navy SEALs, the United States Marine Corps, the U.S. Air Force, and Space Force, and have greatly influenced his life. With that, we are honored to be joined by the president of Semper Brands, LLC, Mike Ryan. How are you?
Hey, great, Brian. Good to be with you today. Thanks for having me.
The pleasure is all mine, sir. The pleasure is all mine. Now, we got a rainy day here in Houston, huh?
Yeah, that's okay. You can still drink bourbon.
Yeah, hey, this
Keeps
is the
you warm.
time of year to do it, right?
That's
Right?
right. Yeah, you bet.
Fall is upon us. It was in the low 60s last night. For people in Houston, that's definitely whiskey drinking weather, huh?
'Tis the season. You bet.
Any big plans for tonight's game 3 in Philadelphia as our Astros go and battle Philly fan?
Yeah, well, obviously, I'm an Astros fan. Okay. I grew up in the Northeast, used to be a Yankees fan, so don't hate me, but that's okay. I'm an Astros fan now. So we're just going to stay home tonight and just watch the game on TV. I've got a very busy day ahead. Got to be in Austin and then San Antonio for meetings this afternoon. So hope to get home in time tonight to catch the game. Yeah.
Well, I think it's a 7 o'clock start, and I know you've got some traveling to do. Good thing for AM
I
radio.
never drive above the speed limit.
Well, you be the only one around here. Now, Mike, look, you said you're from the Northeast. Where exactly are you from, and what was your life like growing up as a kid?
So I grew up in the Bronx, went to school in what is now the South Bronx, actually, literally a block or two away from Yankee Stadium, first grade to eighth grade. It was a Catholic school, private school. My dad was a technician when he was in the Army, electronics technician. My mother was a school teacher. So we were just your average middle-class folks, trying to make a living, get ahead. And I always had a head for math. And so when I got to high school, I really focused on the math and science curriculum. Today, they call it STEM, right? Back then, they just said, oh, you're good at math. Okay. So I went to Fordham Prep High School, which many people know. convenient fact, Fordham University, I think, has the highest number of graduates that go on to work at the FBI, Fordham Law School. So it's very prestigious in that regard. Graduated, and then I went to college in Michigan for my electrical engineering degree, because my dad was obviously electronics technician in the Army. And so he started to teach me, and that's where I got my interest to get my engineering degree.
Engineering degree. I mean, well, first of all, what was it like being in the Bronx as a kid? Did you ever ride your bike to Yankee Stadium and catch a game?
No, I couldn't do that. We were probably 15, 20 miles away. It was still inner city, yes. But I was in first grade. I would take the bus and the subway train on my own, as a first grader, and travel half an hour, 45 minutes away from home, all by myself. It was commonplace. Probably wouldn't do that today with your first graders, but yeah, we didn't have school buses. We took the bus and the train, and that's how it was, just for everybody.
Yeah, I had free reign too growing up as a kid in Southern California. Me and my brother would skateboard to the beach. We would ride our beach cruisers. I mean, young kids, and we'd get on the city bus. And, there was, America's Most Wanted had just started. And so we were always very street smart about not engaging with the wrong people and, just kind of being, again, raising ourselves to be that street smart, to have that sense, if you will. So I definitely can relate to you on traveling, as a young child alone and kind of growing up quickly, if you will.
Well, obviously our family is Irish, and being in that part of the Bronx, there's a big Irish population. Many of them were policemen and firemen. So it was, since I was in first grade, it was always yes, sir, no, sir, respect the police. I never knew any other way. Well,
and that's still a good tradition here in Texas. We have a lot of good kids here.
Absolutely.
And I get that all the time. Yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. I mean, there's still a lot of really polite kids that oftentimes get categorized as misfits and bad kids. But, the kids that my children hang around and are affiliated with sports with are all solid folks with a
absolutely. I love living in Texas. Wouldn't go anywhere else. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. For sure. So you didn't take the military route. You have a lot of family that has inspired you, that have served and are still serving. You would take the college route.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, my father wanted me to go to college. He was at the time, he was at Notre Dame, and he was studying to be a civil engineer. And then the Korean War broke out. So he actually left Notre Dame before he finished his studies to go enlist in the Army in the Korean War. And so he always felt like he wanted me to finish. So I was the first one on our side to go through college and finish. And coincidentally, right after I got out of school, I got a job with an aerospace military contractor. So that's where my background came in. I was an electrical engineer for a supercomputer company in aerospace engineering. So code words, we design missiles. Okay. So I got to meet all kinds of cool people in all kinds of crazy places that I can't mention, as you might suspect, and travel all over the world, meet some wonderful, interesting people. It seems crazy to say this today, but some of the smartest people in the entire world work for the federal government, but they're not politicians. They're the engineers in the background that design all this stuff that makes everything work. It's just phenomenal. If you only knew, today they're coming out with stuff that I worked on 30 years ago. It's just insane, the technology that we have available to us if we're just wise enough to use it properly.
That leads me into the next question here. You're an engineer. You have been on some big jobs. You've had, several job titles and various positions. And it's all been a very, very successful career. What would ultimately lead you to becoming an entrepreneur of a whiskey, right? Of spirits? And you're in the spirit business. And how would that all happen?
So Well, coincidentally, when my wife and I moved into this house several years ago, our children were still very young. And they were just starting out in the Katy ISD district area. The lady that was selling it, unfortunately, her husband had passed away, and they had this big bar, as you can see behind. That's not a fake. It's real, okay? And they were downsizing in a much smaller house, and she called my wife up and said, would you mind if I left about 100 whiskey bottles behind, because the movers aren't going to move them? And from my travels all over the world in the years, I had this huge collection as well. And so we were overstuffed. We had way too much. And my wife said, you've got to get rid of all this stuff. Well, I'm still Irish. I'm still frugal. I'm not going to pour it down the drain. So I started sampling it to see which ones I like best. And after a while, yes, they're all good. Okay, they're all good, but they're all kind of the same. And so I just said one day, I can do better, because I do have that inventive streak. And I just said, I bet I can do better. And I bought a chemistry set on Amazon, and I started experimenting, and I researched the internet like crazy with mash bills and who makes what, when, and where, and how they do all this. Even apprenticed at a local distillery here in town. And as you know, you probably met my partner, Joe Baker, Lieutenant Colonel Joe Baker.
Mm-hmm.
So I've known him for 30 years or so. Our wives have been friends since 6th grade. So I called him up one day and I said, Joe, I have this idea. I want to start a bourbon company. And he's Lieutenant Colonel. He's got several law degrees, University of Texas graduate, 21 years, U.S. Marine Corps, worked at the Pentagon for 4-star generals, and he said, I'm in. And I said, well, you haven't heard how much it's going to cost or what it's going to take? He says, doesn't matter. I'm in. So it's like, okay. So for your viewers, Texas is an extremely difficult and restrictive state legally for the spirits business. So the best decision I ever made was to ask my friend, who's a brilliant attorney, to join us, because, I probably would have made 100 mistakes by now if it wasn't for all of his legal eagle knowledge. So it's worked out really well. Explain
the legalities behind it.
Well, in general, these laws are left over from Prohibition. They're 100 years old, and they do need to be reformed. So let's just say that right now. But there are a lot of vested interests, as you might suspect, among all the different players. And it's very difficult. Each state is different. In general, they call it the tight house rules, or the 3-tier system. So we're a manufacturer or a supplier. And then what we do is we must sell only to distributors. And there's national or regional brands. There's also, local, just for Texas distributors. We must sell to them. They pay us, and then they put it in their warehouse, and then they have to distribute and sell to the retail stores, which in turn sell to the consumer. So we have to sell the same bottle 3 times. We have to sell it to the distributor, because they have to agree to carry it, because they have to pay us within 30 days. They can't wait. Then they in turn rely on us to help sell it to the retail stores. So the retail stores then pay them in a secondary transaction. And then thirdly, we have to generate consumer demand, so the consumers know we're out there, so that they can walk into the store and ask for it. So it's a complicated system. There's a lot of people now that are doing the direct to consumer advertising, the DTC websites. We've got 4 different partners on our website as well, and Big Stick Spirits, but they also, in some regards, have to subscribe to that model. It depends on what state they're in. So every state has different rules. So their lawyers, their legal teams determine whether or not they can sell it mail order from Florida to Texas, or Florida to Kentucky, or vice versa, that kind of a thing. So as you might imagine, Kentucky has the most liberal rules. They can sell, I think, don't quote me, I'm not the lawyer, like 2 bottles per person out of state, mail order, direct to consumer, and try to bypass that system. And every time you bypass the middleman, you're saving margin, and you can reduce the cost to the consumer. But there's a lot of middlemen, And as you know, with the economy, transportation costs are going through the roof. So the transportation costs are what's killing everybody.
Well, and you said Kentucky's the most liberal when it comes to these laws. Hello, that's the land of moonshine.
Right.
And those guys aren't buying a lot. They make their own, man. That's homegrown stuff there in Kentucky.
Well, Texas is the energy capital, right? And Kentucky's, the bourbon capital. So it's funny, but coincidentally, I was talking to some of my kids' friends at Texas Tech the other day, and a few of them are really sharp kids. The distilling process is almost identical to the refinery process. You have a long column, you heat up the product, and you pull off different grades of product based on the temperature and the viscosity, So the same as, the heads, the body of the whiskey, and the tails, they separate it into three parts. And same kind of a thing, with the barrel of oil, you get the gasoline, you get diesel, you get, tar, and then you get asphalt at the very bottom. So it's the same thing. You heat it up in a big still.
So would it be safe to say that you're like the Walter White of whiskey? I mean, look, you're this engineer. I mean,
Yeah.
you've worked on crazy things before,
Right.
and you've had a very successful career, and all of a sudden you find yourself in the middle of a whiskey business by you purchased a chemist set
Right.
online, and you have created this tremendous company through your entrepreneurial spirit.
Sure.
Spirits, no pun intended. Now, you have designed or created this special taste of whiskey. Right. How long did it take after you got your chemist set and you were doing all the trials and errors and all? How long did it take before you had an actual product that you were happy with to send to the shelves of America?
Little over a year. Of course, as everything, we started the business before COVID. And if you remember several years ago, that was during the government lockdown. So we applied for the permit through the federal government, and they do the complete background check. You can't have relatives working in other businesses. You have to divulge, all your investments, where you're investing your money, who you associate with, where your bank accounts are, everything. So they don't think you're the bootleggers. And that took several months. And then you've got to get your license, and you've got to contract with people to make the bourbon for you, buy all the supply chain. And then once we had the product on the shelves, that's when COVID hit, literally same month. So we just started distributing, and boom, COVID hit. And then we couldn't do tastings in the stores, which is a big part of introducing the product, is to start going out and doing tastings, and everything was cut off. So we really had to scramble. Sometimes I did what they call a dry tasting, where you say, oh, here's the bottle. Look, it's pretty. Please buy it. But I can't let you have a taste because I can't give you a cup to drink in the store.
So I have a manufacturing question for you, because obviously this is made in a building, in a warehouse, where they probably make several different brands of whiskey. How is that quality control managed to ensure that you get the same product bottled every single time and not have any contamination, cross-contamination of another whiskey dealer or manufacturer?
Sure.
How does that process work?
So it's all batches. Everything's in a batch. And so, you buy your batch, and then they move on to the next one. In terms of the bottles, the bourbon, this is an empty one. Okay. But
let's see that. Put it up closer.
So big stick, and there's the stick, the charred oak stick in every bottle. So all these are made separately, but the whiskey is usually 120 to 130 proof in the barrel. So it's a much higher alcohol content. So naturally, it's all antiseptic, antibiotic, just as it is. And most people, they say they proof it down, which means you introduce water back into it to get it down to 80, 90 proof, or whatever you choose, kind of a thing. So after we did all our chemistry experiments, we started with you can see it's a piece of American white oak. It's actually the same wood, that literally same exact wood, furniture grade, that's made my bar. So we started with that, and we joke around with it, but we say the size of the stick matters. And the reason the size of the stick matters is it's true. It's because in this particular bottle, in fact, we just got a patent on the design as well for the bottle. But the stick is such that how we designed it, and part of, I think, the brilliant part of this is that the surface area ratio of the stick to the liquid in the bottle is almost identical to what it would be if the whiskey was still in the 53-gallon barrel. So that's where it comes from. And the fact that you char the stick, in terms of chemistry, all natural wood, it's not me, Wikipedia, has 3 or 4 fructoses in it, wood sugars, right? Well, fructoses are more complicated chemical modules. They're longer, right? So as you know from cooking, you like to eat, right? When you char sugar, you get caramel. So all natural wood, if you char it the correct way, will give off caramel flavors. Likewise, people say, okay, they kind of stop there. The resins in the wood are phenolic acids, which are sometimes called esters or flavonoids, aromatic compounds in general. Well, those are precursor chemicals to making vanilla extract in the grocery store. So literally, by charring a piece of wood to the right spec, putting it in the bottle, it imparts all natural caramel and vanilla flavors. We don't add coloring, what you see is what you get kind of a thing. And it turns out literally, that dark. It's probably the darkest bourbon you ever taste. Now, the unique part, what we found out later, is because of the charcoal, it also makes it extremely smooth. So as you know, I think you probably had some. It's probably also the smoothest bourbon you'll ever taste. That was a bonus. Didn't expect that. When we had all things together and we started tasting in the stores, people would give me one word reaction. They just go, wow. When I get a wow, I know they're going to buy, So when I get the one word response, it's like, okay, we're doing good.
Yeah, I have stopped drinking many, many years ago after I got sick, but I do have an occasional glass of red wine. So I have not tried your specific product, but I have smelt it. And the smell of the wood and the smell of the whiskey is unlike anything I've ever smelt before. And I'm sure if I was a drinker, I would love, your whiskey. But like I said, I've known you for a couple of years now. We've been to a lot of business after hour events and
veterans events, and sure.
And you bring in your whiskey and people taste it, they smell it, and it is, you're always, the line is always by you. Let's just put it this way, guys. If you ever go to an event near Houston, Texas, and Mike Ryan is there, he's the most popular guy in the room. Everybody is lining up to sample his whiskey, his bourbon, and people are purchasing bottles from him, so on and so forth.
I'll be in Dallas mid-December too. I'll be in DFW before Christmas. Yeah. So, yeah.
So, okay. So look, let's just face it, with all that chemistry and all that science that you laid down, I'm going to start calling you Walter White. You are the Walter White of whiskey. You're just so sophisticated. You know what I mean?
We talked to Joe, and you look at the store and there's hundreds and hundreds of brands on the shelf. When you go into a large chain store, you're overwhelmed, right? And we looked at that and said, how are we as little guys going to make this a profitable business? So he and I both said, if we don't do something extraordinary and special, we better not even start, right? Mm-hmm. So we thought about all this even beforehand. And Joe and I actually said, you can look at the label. It actually says, go big or go home, right?
Hey, so I want you to hold that bottle up for a few minutes okay, now bring it back a little bit.
Oh, there we go.
I want people to be able to see the whole bottle. Now go, yeah, there you go. Now keep it there for a minute.
All right.
Yeah, let's talk.
So Odin is the warrior spirit representing all our military. Like I said, all my family is served. I hear all the war stories. I hear everything that goes on all across the world. They've done, they're doctors, lawyers, Navy SEALs, they're operators, right? So I know what goes on at the high levels and the low levels, everything in between, as you may know as well. So we just said Odin is the warrior spirit representing all our military that we want to honor. Go big or go home. That's our motto, Joe and I, trying to do this right. Semper Fi Brands is actually our company name, and Big Stick, kind of obvious. There's a big stick in the bottle. So the colors themselves, and you may know this, the red, the blue, and the gold are an exact color match for the Marine Corps uniform. So that was really important. Anybody who's Marine ought to recognize the colors of the dress blue uniform right off the bat. In addition to that, the gold embellishments, around the gold foil embellishments, like similar to the uniform embellishments on the cuffs of the uniforms or your sleeves. If you've ever seen a Marine Corps uniform with this, let me use this one, has it better. This bottle, even the cap, the gold cap is like the buttons, right? It's about the same size as the buttons on the uniform. And not to leave anybody out, on the back, if I can get that, is the ship. So we don't want to leave out our Navy friends or the Coast Guard friends. Certainly, the little Easter eggs, I'm going to tell you all the history, but the Easter eggs, if you can see, Odin is got the spear, so the tip of the spear, Navy SEALs. My father and my uncle served in the Army. You can tell he's holding the Captain America shield. So we tried to do all of this to represent subtly all the branches of the military, because we didn't want to leave anybody out. So that's very important to us. And things you can't see, but if I hold two bottles together, there's not a straight line on this bottle. It's an optical illusion. There's actually a little air gap in between. So they're hourglass shaped to represent a soldier standing at attention. So, and the white, of course, just for the belt line for the Marines. So, because they have the white belt. So all of this symbolism is very important. I know it's important to everybody in the service. We tried to put as much on there as we possibly could.
Folks, you're listening to a very intelligent and educated man with a mind of with the mind of an entrepreneur, guys. If you want to be successful, just listen to what this guy is talking about here. A lot of thought went into this. You stand out, and there's great mementos, and there's history in that bottle, and there's all the lines of respect that you have used there, and I think that's very, very, very well done. Now,
thank you.
We have a lot of entrepreneurs that listen to the show. We have veterans, so you have been a successful entrepreneur. What type of advice could you offer our listeners that, one, maybe starting their own business, or two, maybe have been in their business for many, many, many years, and perhaps you could leave them with some words of wisdom or advice?
A thousand points of light. There's 1,000 reasons to try and work and do good. Obviously, work hard, be honest, have good values, just like military code of honor, code of conduct. All those things are important. Everything's important, right down to yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, please, thank you. All those things, those little details, every little detail sets you apart, right? Every single little detail is important. So you sweat the details. Yes, you've got to know your numbers. Nobody expects you to be a jack of all trades. I've found that, when people see me sweating the details and they know I'm working my butt off, they're more inclined to help me. And if I need help and I ask for it, even just talking to you, you're more inclined to help me do that or to get the word out, because you've seen me busting my butt out there talking to people, working the market channels, restaurants, bar. You've seen me do that, right? So, I'm not sitting on my tail sending emails saying, how come we're not selling, right? We're out there in the market saying, please buy our product in multiple states. I'll, driving to 2 different cities in Texas this afternoon to do the same thing. So, so that's really important. And last but not least, pray. I do pray. I pray every day. I think it makes a difference. I think it keeps you grounded. And again, it makes you realize that you're not alone. Whatever you do, you realize you're not alone.
Absolutely. That's very important to have faith as well when you're running a business. Especially, a business where you're your own boss. You have to manage yourself. Right. You have to manage your time. You have to manage the time you spend with your customers. And yes, I know you are the president of this company, and you are boots on the ground. You are very accountable. And you do live by those core values, that you've had your whole life, that honor, the courage, the commitment, and that's a hallmark of the Marine Corps, again, and your business partner's a retired lieutenant colonel, your best friend.
One of our other advisors in Austin that we're going to see this afternoon is another retired Marine. And I promised him that when we first started this business, I said, you help us out, I'll help you out. I promise. one thing I'm going to promise you is I will not be the weakest link in the chain. I will not be the slowest link in the chain. And over the last 2 years, he's known that. Whenever he calls me, I'm on the spot, sending an email, talking to somebody, whatever it takes. And I just talked to him 2 days ago to set up this meeting. And he said, I'm not a Marine personally. I wasn't the Marine, but I'd like to think I have the mentality of one. And he said, you absolutely do. You make stuff happen. You get stuff done. So, I mean, that's the reputation you want. When people talk to you and ask you for something, they know they're going to get it done.
Absolutely. And we live in a country where you can do anything you want. We all have the same opportunity. It's all dependent upon the work that you want to put into it to accomplish and achieve those goals that you set forth. And again, hard work. I mean, hard work pays off, but it takes a long time of repetition. It takes a lot of repetition to get to be the master of a trade. And you know what they say, 10,000 hours.
10,000 hours, that's right.
Creates an expert, okay? So, folks, it takes time. 10,000 hours in one trade, you will become an expert, but you'll never know it all because the knowledge, it's always changing. Things are always changing. Things are always evolving. So you need to keep up on the business. You need to keep up on the science. You need to keep up on the consumers. Things, so like back in the day, it used to be Budweiser was the beer. Now there's a billion different beers that people make because that's like the new thing. So you got to, constantly stay up with the times and the tastes and the way things look and the way things feel and the new surroundings of bars. And, so there's so much there that,
I would comment too that I tell you what, I love doing business with veterans because they already think like that. They're already trained to be that kind of way and to think and, adapt and overcome. And the one thing I would say, if you're now retired and you're out of the service and you're a veteran, is that, in big business, there are very few rules compared to the military. So you can negotiate, you can work deals that you couldn't normally do in the military. It's not nearly as black and white. And, I would just say that, your perseverance makes a difference. Your ability to get things done on time, on budget, all that stuff matters to potential business partners. They do respect that. They understand that. And they do honor that. That is something that most folks, when they retire from the military, don't think they have enough of. And, the leadership training and the skills, you don't get that in the private industry. Those are all the school of hard knocks. So while you're doing your basic training or TBS or anything else you're doing, you're still getting an education and basic leadership skills that's worth a whole bunch after you're out of the service.
If you want to be a successful business owner, if you want to be a successful entrepreneur, folks, you heard it right there, on time and on budget. That is integrity. That is dressing up. That is showing up, and that is doing what you promised that you would do. And the follow through, folks, it's what's going to stand out. If you follow through, and again, guys, this is a constant reoccurring process. Now, this leads me into the next question. Look, people may look at you and say, wow, this guy's got the perfect life. He's smart. He's so educated. I mean, this guy's got so many degrees.
I haven't talked to my wife yet.
So look, we all deal with the struggles of life. Life is hard, especially folks like you who are entrepreneurs. You've got the anxieties of earning that next paycheck, constantly being on the grind to ensure that the stream of income that you work so hard on continues to come in, as things change. Who do you look for strength? And I know you said that you pray a lot. But do you have a mentor as well? A mentor that you lean on?
Sad to say, I've never really had one. I've learned it from the school of hard knocks, quite honestly. I'm offering, my help. Me, the Veterans Chamber of Commerce in Houston. I'm offering my help to other people. They know all they can do. It's Ryan at semperfibrands.com, or Big Stick Spirits on Instagram if you want to connect. But it's just, now you get to the point where, it's like, hey, I need help. I've got 30 years experience in other industries, so I know enough people where I can call them up and say, I need help. I called someone a while back when we first started from the Chamber of Commerce, and they said, hey, I can hook you up with the Houston Chronicle. And then 2 days later, I'm being interviewed by the Houston Chronicle. And then out of the blue, they called me 2 weeks later and said, Channel 13 News is going to be here to talk to us about some chamber business. Why don't you come by and they'll give you a 30-second spot on Channel 13 News. So, one thing leads to the other. More press begets more press, And what I will say is a word of advice, which nobody does today. And I don't know why, but I respect this greatly. And I'm sure you do too. But you screw up, you say, oops, I screwed up. Sorry, I'll fix it. I'll make it better. Nobody admits to screwing up. They say, well, it was somebody else's fault. It's the economy. It's this. You know what? All those things have always been true. When I was born many, many years ago, we had the gas crisis, in the 70s, and there were lines for cars going around because there was the gas crisis. There was the Iranian crisis, American hostages in Iran. World strife happens every so often. But, what you've got to do, the one thing you can do is control your attitude, and you ought to know that, you have to control your attitude, and you can only do what you can do, sink or swim. Sometimes you're going to sink, sometimes you're going to swim, but you do what you can do. And if you screw up and say, I screwed up, I'll fix it, I'll make it right. I think in the end, with the people that matter, you'll gain more respect.
Absolutely. Do not lose your bearing. People get frustrated. And in order to be successful at anything you do, whether it's passing a bill in Congress or selling whiskey to a distributor, folks, you have got to be calm. You have got to be courteous. And you have got to, enter this relationship, as if this is a lifelong building relationship to keep that stream of income and revenue coming in. Now, I want to know what it's like again to constantly be working that. I just own my own landscape business.
Right.
So every spring I'd be like, oh my God, I would freak out and say, are we not going to be busy this year? And you put so much pressure on yourself. Nobody put more pressure on me than me.
Exactly.
Nobody. There is not a motivational speaker. There is not a Navy SEAL. Nobody in this world could put more pressure on me than my own self. I'm literally my own worst enemy when it comes to me being my own critic. And so by doing so, I have pushed myself extremely hard my entire life to try to be the best at everything that I ever touched my hand on. Now, with that being said, that comes with a price. That comes with the anxieties of business. That comes with the sacrifice of not being around your family constantly, and because you're providing for them to give them the best life possible. I want to know if that's the same way it is in your business as it was for mine. And once I got into summer and I was like, oh my God, I'm 3 months out. So one anxiety goes to another anxiety. The first is, am I going to be busy? And then the second one goes to, oh my God, I'm too busy now. Help me. So it's kind of like this, it just never quits. It's like you're always under this pressure. And that's the life of an entrepreneur. How do you manage that?
Well, a few phrases, they may sound like a cliche, but they always come to my mind. And it's 99% of the things you worry about will never happen. And maybe that's because you're worrying about them. I don't know. But, and the other thing is that, God will never give you anything that he doesn't think you can handle. So how you handle it is up to you, again, with your attitude. If you need help and people know you're busting your butt and you're out there and you're doing your job, people will volunteer to help you. If they see you sitting down at a desk and barking orders, they're not going to help you. But if they see you it's like being a leader, right? The leader is the first one to march into battle, not the last guy, right? The first guy is the one that counts, the point man, right? If you're the point man and they see you being the point man, or you're the scout, then you're paving the way for everybody else. And so, so that's what we've tried to do with this business, is to say we have honor, we have integrity, and we want to thank everyone for doing their jobs, so that we can be crazy enough to try and start a bourbon business with a chemistry set. So,
Lead by example. You have got an amazing story. You have got an amazing brand. You have an amazing business partner. Now let's talk about some of the amazing groups that you center yourself around in the greater Houston area. Do you
Yeah.
belong to any organizations?
So the one thing you want to do is surround yourself with other, not necessarily like-minded people, right? You don't need an echo chamber. What you need are successful people. So one of my friends says, your net worth is the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with. Your net worth will become that. So try to figure out who's been successful in other businesses and hang around with them, and then you become the sponge and you absorb what they know and you pick up tidbits along the way. And I guess from the military perspective, that you've got fitness reports, your fit reps, right? And you've got to do something every year, whether it's push-ups or this or that, or sometimes it's training classes. You've got to go to this training class, marksmanship class, you've got to earn this merit badge, et cetera, right? I mean, you've got all these things you've got to continually learn. So when I've seen people fail is when they say, well, I'm the vice president. I don't need to know anything anymore. I know everything I need to know. That's when the company fails, is when you think you know everything you need to know.
Yeah, you can't stop learning. You cannot. Everything is it's constantly changing.
Right.
Everything is constantly changing.
I work with the Katie Fulsher Chamber of Commerce, the Katy Chamber of Commerce. I met with the mayor the other day about a research project. I met the Houston Veterans Chamber of Commerce. I keep all the media contacts on my phone. We're looking at possibly sponsoring some musicians for the fall. So I've got some music industry people I'm starting to associate with as well. Do I know anything about the music industry? No, not a lick, but they do, right? And so whenever I'm around them, I listen and I learn tidbits about the music industry, about how to book a gig, and not that I'm ever going to do that, how to write an ad for Google, etc. But all that stuff, so I associate with those kinds of people where I know I'm not perfect, but I know who is. I know who develops a commercial. I know who does social media really well. I know who can do a press release. I know those kinds of folks that just over time,
And part of that is remaining relevant and remaining and having that relationship, staying in front of them. You have to constantly be a presence in this game. I mean, in any game, in any business, especially a small business like yours, you're not Jack Daniels, right? So you have to remain in front of them. Now, perhaps one day you will be up there. But speaking of that, people are like, you know what? I'm tired of Jack Daniels. What can I get? How can I put my hands? How can I grab a bottle of that big stick bourbon behind you?
Right. So coincidentally, in Texas, it's real easy. We're in 100 or 200 stores, but we've expanded. So please tell all your friends out there, we can never have too many sales. There's no such thing. We've recently expanded into California, New Mexico. We're in Colorado, Illinois. We just got several great reviews from Wisconsin. We went Wisconsin Whiskey Fest, got excellent reviews. The Whiskey Wash, there's a blogger out of Wisconsin, gave us an outstanding rating, excellent rating, 4 out of 5 stars, just tremendous. Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, New to Louisiana, Washington, D.C., New York State, and New York City. It's a great market for us, and Florida. So last count, that's 10 or 12 states plus Washington, D.C. The thing is, we need to be in more states, and we know that. And so we're working with if you go to bigstickspirits.com on the website, we have 4 different mail order partners. So if you order through them, then you can buy a bottle for yourself, or you can buy a bottle for a friend as a gift for the holidays through all those people, all the different mail order providers. So
you mentioned
the legal figured out.
Right. So like, say you're just I'm a regular Joe and I'm living in Texas. Where can I go get a bottle?
So there's all kinds of stores bigstickspirits.com. We've got all the stores listed on our website.
Okay, cool. All right. Nice.
So legally they can go into any liquor store and ask for it. And the liquor stores, so theoretically it's any liquor store in Texas, or all you have to do is ask them for it. when we're distributed in the state, that means it's in the warehouse, ready to go. All they have to do is ask for it. Any store.
All right, guys. It is almost Veterans Day. It is almost the Marine Corps birthday. Guys, go to bigstickspirits.com. Get your bottle today. Get your veteran that gift, a great gift that they can sit around, perhaps a campfire this fall, coming into the holiday season, perhaps a ball game. This is the greatest time to be a sports fan. You got the World Series, you got the NFL, you got college football,
Right.
you got NBA basketball, you got NHL hockey, and we have got bourbon, folks. We have got bourbon and we have got whiskey here for you to taste. Have a cigar and enjoy that fellowship with your friends. Go to bigstickspirits.com today and get your bottle and help support this.
Special announcement too. In Texas, we have a limited barrel select run at one of the large retailers. Can't tell you who it is, but we have a rye whiskey with a green label, and then we have a rye with a cinnamon stick. Again, we're sticklers for details. I don't know if you can really tell, but there's a cinnamon stick in the bottle as well. So if you want a nice hot toddy for the Christmas season, the rye with cinnamon, a limited edition, only available in Texas, and the rye whiskey as well. That's a barrel select at certain retailers, limited edition for the holidays, and people love it. I'm already getting comments. I've done a couple tastings, and people are going nuts over it just for a fall release. So it's a special.
I love it. It's good. That cinnamon smell just takes you to the holiday season, and
Absolutely.
that good aroma, and again the fellowship with friends and with family, and sharing a drink and a cigar, with the folks that matter the most in your life. So, Mike, listen, this has been a great interview, man. I really appreciate you coming on and, telling us a little bit about yourself and how you got this business started and where you're at right now in life. So again, it's very inspiring. And folks, if you listen to this interview very carefully, you could pick up a lot on what this very, very successful man has said. And with that, we sincerely appreciate everying you have done.
We're staying humble. We've got a long way to go. We're still very humble. We're still just a drop in the bucket. So we appreciate everybody's help and support, as always.
Well, you do a lot of work in the military and veteran community too. And I wanted to say this before we leave. Folks, 5% of the portions of all of his profits are donated to military charities. And just to name a few here, Canines for Warriors, Camp Hope PTSD Foundation, the Warrior Surf Foundation, the Marine Corps Law Enforcement Foundation, the Semper Fi 3 Memorial Honor Detail, We Defy Foundation, the Marine Corps Coordinating Council. Folks, 5% portion of the profits go to those organizations, and they are accountable and they are transparent to that as well.
Absolutely. And so, what's nice to know, Brian, is that just as a plug for all of them, it's a magic number. 95 isn't just the proof, it's symbolic of the donation, but most of these charities we donate to that we've looked at, they also donate 95% of their donations to the intended recipients. So it really is a magic number in a lot of ways.
Love it. Love it. It just fits. You're just you're so sophisticated and you're so elegant, and you're just, you are kind of like the most interesting man in Houston.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
Thank you.
And you're a great friend, and I've always appreciated the time that we've shared with lunches and meeting you out at these veteran and military parties and get together. So look, you're doing a great job in the community, and your work has certainly not gone unnoticed.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure being with you today.
Semper Fi, folks. Until next time, for Tuesdays with Tally, this is Brian Tally. Good night, Semper Fi, and God bless.